Welcome to the Walk Through Grief with Grace podcast, a space for human hearts to gather around stories of loss and love. I'm Jenn Cormier, your grief guide and host. It is my honor to have you join us through this sacred act of listening. May you receive something here that you need, something that is healing and calls forth your compassionate heart. We are so glad you're here. Hello. Today, I'm excited to share a conversation with Ann Greenwald, a member of the Grace Collective. We had Ann on the show a while back, and we're really excited to have her here today to share a major transformation that she's gone through over the past year and a half. Ann hired me as a one-on-one mentor because she was feeling really daunted with some deep existential questions. She was asking herself, what is really mine to do? What's my lane, my identity? What's the new title for my work in the world? And it felt really overwhelming. I'm guessing you might be able to relate to some of that. Anne recently witnessed some really powerful end of life experiences with her in-laws that she'll be sharing with us. And at the same time, she watched her whole family struggle with a really defunct healthcare system. It was riddled with broken communication channels between patient, family, care team, doctors. And she said to me back then, she declared, I want to fix the healthcare system. And she had a real desire in her heart to bring a heart-centered approach to a broken system. But as you might imagine, she was struggling with how she could uniquely help in such a vast arena. She needed to find a new identity for herself and for her business. And at the time, you might remember back to our original podcast, she was calling herself a movement coach, a personal trainer, a Reiki master, a healer. And her wheelhouse has been helping aging bodies to lessen pain and feel better. And Anne has always really loved the work she did, but this bigger passion was bubbling up. So, as a mentor and a business coach, I helped Anne shift her focus and her perspective. And she found a new way to support family caregivers so they could create meaningful end of life experiences. This, especially with folks with some form of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And this truly lit her up. Most importantly, we landed together on her new title, which is Elder Care Health Advocate. And she's really been owning that title. And she's coming in those shoes to speak with us today. And said to me, now I get to do all the things I love, but I've also been able to expand my reach into something even more exciting to me, aiding the whole family system around receiving really deep care and support around dementia or Alzheimer's, and also navigating the broader healthcare system. She's feeling really satisfied, and I've been really honored to help Anne every step of the way to realize really the value of her services. She's doubled her rates, and using this Elder Care Health Advocate title has really helped her receive the gift of feeling freedom and credibility and confidence. So, this episode is for you if you might see yourself in Anne, if you're ready to shift and expand your work in the world. This episode is also for you if you have a family member who might be experiencing the challenges that come with aging. Perhaps they've just received a new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, or they've been experiencing dementia, some other form of dementia for some time. You might be supporting a loved one as a caregiver. If any of this sounds like you, this episode is definitely for you. So, on to our conversation with Anne. I look forward to hearing what you think about the podcast. And I just want to say also, if you have a big dream to change the world, just like Anne, and you're not sure about your first steps, I'd love to chat with you over a virtual tea. I've opened up a few times in my calendar each month over this summer season to connect one on one with some of our listeners. So I'd love to connect with you, especially if you have a big dream you'd like to birth. And um, the link to sit down and chat with me is in the show notes. Enjoy the episode. Welcome. It's so wonderful to have you with us again, Ann Greenwald.
Thank you, Jen. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, Anne was one of our first podcast guests way back, bringing her expertise as a movement specialist and a personal trainer. She helps bodies to feel good and be strong at any and every age. And she's been doing that for like over 30 years, right? And now we're having her on because we've been working together for some time. She's really expanding her reach and what she's doing in the world. And she's working now as an elder care health advocate, which is your slogan is teamwork makes the dream work, which I love. And Anne just started a community group online called um, give us the name, Anne. It is Team Effort, right? Families navigating dementia and Alzheimer's. Because when we have a loved one um, who is um, becoming, I would say, challenged with their capacity, right, in their brain capacity and their body capacity, um, in the last chapters of their life, it's not only challenging for them, but it's challenging for their whole family system and many family members who are actively acting as caregiver and other family members who might not consider themselves caregivers but are having a challenge navigating this time with their loved one. Would you say that's true?
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, yeah. So Anne and I have been working together now for some time. She's a member of the Grace Collective, and she's been evolving and growing her practice and her business, helping families. And it came from really a personal place um, with your in-laws and with your dad and your family. And we wanted to share a little bit of your personal story of how you got into this professional work. Um, so would you be up for sharing kind of um, the origin of this, Anne, with us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. As with many families, the parents will sometimes decide what their future wants to look like and choose to live by or close near one of their children to be
Mhm.
supported by that.
Yeah.
And in the case of my husband's parents, my in-laws, he's one of three boys, and they were living on Long Island at the time, and both boys lived in New Jersey, and we were up in Vermont. Um, and so the criteria of where you want to go, they wanted to get out of traffic, out of their life controlled by traffic. So, New Jersey or Vermont, Vermont wins that hands down. But we also are very close to a major medical center, which was important to them. And so, yeah, they moved up and I helped them find the house and the whole bit in their 70s. So this
Okay.
was Forever House. And we quickly became, A&R maintenance service to help them with the yard work, with the pool, with everything going forward. There was
And
nice time.
when you say A&R maintenance service, you mean Anne and Rick,
That is
you and
correct.
your
Yes.
husband
Me and
became,
my husband were a team
yeah,
that, you know, helped do a lot of things for them.
yeah,
But it was a beautiful relationship back and forth. They could, watch our kids grow up. But as they got older and started needing more and more and what their health concerns would look like, it started to ramp up quite a bit. And going through that entire process for the last 20 years of their life and relationship with My mother-in-law, as always can be interesting and whatever, the whole family dynamics. And she was always the sick one, but my father-in-law ended up dying before she did, and that was a big deal. And we went through many healthcare crises, as people often do at the end of life. And the biggest one before he passed away, though, was she fell and broke her hip and got through that. In the meantime, she also has disease MDS, which is myelodysplastic syndrome, a blood cancer disease. So she's getting transfusions every 2 weeks, so we're dealing with a lot of health issues in and out of hospitals and getting places. So logistic, family navigation periods, all, you know, we were dealing with it's a medical family, so working together on that. Um, Father-in-law passes away, and all of a sudden, now she's the only one. So, dealing with grief and uh, helping her one-on-one now, and becomes a lot harder. And she needed now in-home care. And what does that look like in rural Vermont? Not so easy to get in-home care. So, keep fast forwarding, and she does get to the place where her disease was overcoming her, and it was getting much closer to death. And the brothers were working unbelievably beautifully together as a team of who's handling the financials, who's handling the medical decisions, all of those aspects of it. But lo and behold, what did she truly need was tender loving care, a little more spiritual, but she wouldn't quite go there, but just wanted to be held and taken care of and have it be a peaceful thing. And so it was really fascinating for me to kind of dive into that role a little bit and make it easier. I hate to see anybody in pain. I couldn't stand to see her in pain. So how do you ease that pain? And, rubbing her feet and bringing in aromatherapy and music therapy and just trying to weave it in a little bit easier. And the beautiful part of all of that is my husband and my brother-in-laws realized the significance and importance of that role, and they welcomed my voice into the decision-making processes. And when, shit's hitting the fan and crisis moments happen, who could you go to for support? And so I personally was like, what do we do? And so I was diving into resources of end of life doula. How do you make this transition easier, more sacred? Because that was what was important to me. I was helping to establish relationships and connections with her grandchildren and make that easier with, making it the goodbyes sort of happen in a nice way, and that, she would feel the love of everybody and her significance in the world. And they all recognize that as an amazing thing. And I was there to the end, and I guess watching the whole process unfold and helping hold her hand through it, which she was logical to the end, not so easy, but it happened in a beautiful way. And to be there for the end of her life and the last breath changed my life. It was the most amazing moment. All the brothers were surrounded her. I had my hands on her, and to feel that last breath, and we had the music playing, and as she took her last breath, this song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, happened randomly come on the old playlist. And that was like, we all looked at each other, and like, that was that moment. We had this intense connection with the brothers, with the family, with her. It was amazing. So I'm going to cry thinking about it. And so with that being said, I wanted to take that amazing experience and bring it out to others, and the tools and tips and tricks that I learned. So diving into how to help others in that same way is what, led me to you and to family caregiving courses that I've been taking to get certified to be a family caregiving coach.
Mhm.
As I'm now, you know, turning my attention now to my own family and my own parents who are 92, and my father's on mid-stage Alzheimer's journey. Mid-stage, this thing lasts for like 20 years, and it's like the most cruel disease you can ever imagine because he's physically a healthy 92-year-old, but with his essence being taken away slowly, it's heartbreaking. So to
Mm.
help my mother and help my siblings, us all have a similar kind of good experience during this very cruel, difficult time is what my goal is for my family, but for all other families. And I think that's an important thing to have in this crazy world that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Give that support and love to others.
Yeah. So you had an experience with your husband's family and with your mother-in-law's death that was really transformational for you and beautiful. And now you're going through this experience with your own father that's decades long, this Alzheimer's journey with his, I like how you say his essence fading away. And how what are the elements for you that's made that that's transformed that from an excruciating experience to something that has more love and connection? What would you say is the difference between someone going through that and just having feeling like they're going through hell versus feeling love and connection? What makes what's making that true for your family currently?
So, excellent question. Thank you. And I think the biggest thing is naming the disease. And we have had him diagnosed, and we have had an actual disease named, and knowing it's not his fault. It's not him. It's not him being mean or not recognizing or acting bizarrely that you wouldn't expect. And for me to dive in, because this is what I do, it's what I like to do, the research behind the disease process. What is actually happening in the brain, why it's happening, losing the ability to come up with words or languages or memories, but what they retain, what they can still do, and diving into that. So it gives me a beautiful way and method of still having a connection and making him feel safe and calm and making the whole process a little bit easier. It is cruel no matter what. It's never easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it by any means, but for us to have a way of being, of understanding what's going on from a disease process, not blaming, not shaming, not whatever it is, and having tools to help him, to help us, even with personal hygiene, with just, being safe and healthy to a certain extent, and still having it be a good experience. So it's hard. It is really hard to go there, but you can, like, innately, the frequency, vibrations of music, of sound, of smells, our innate senses are still very much intact. And that's like, there's a way to get a connection in there that is beautiful and loving. And so pointing that out to folks has, and to ourselves and to practicing it has been really rewarding. And what you have helped me realize is the rituals around the transition periods, literally walking in the door of my parents' home. I, named it Dementiaville and or Dementia Land, and how to mentally get into the space of, okay, how do we make an assessment of where he is right now? How do we speak with him on a certain level? I've been taught to keep your agenda in the back pocket and kind of, come at it from a different angle. And what are his default modes? Is it idle chit chat? Where is he in space and time? I mean, it's the whole process is sort of fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Having to do the own personal work of it being your father or your mother or, a personal relationship, it's a two-way street. So, as your own experience with that person as your parent, yet role shifts have to happen a little bit on who is the caregiver or parent and
Right.
who still needs love and who still, wants that joy and that spark of joy.
I think that it's a really it's something that we might not think about, but you're bringing up a couple of points here that I think are really important. One is that change of role, right? When we are, oh, okay, even though I'm the child, even though I might be in my 50s or 60s or however old I am, full on adult with my own kids or whatever, right? But I've been this person's child for all these years. And now, as I step into dementia land, I'm stepping in really as the adult or the
Mm-hmm.
caregiver, whereas they're still my parent, but they need care. So it's like it's a different organization and recognizing that. So I think, you're saying they're the layers of recognizing what is. Okay, there's a diagnosis and that means certain things in the brain. Okay, now we have more information to know what dementia land is. And then the organization of your family structure going, oh, even though I've been the child of this person, I'm now stepping in to hold space and be a and give care in a different way. And how can I create a ritual for myself somehow driving to their house, getting out of the car, crossing the threshold of the door where I go, okay, I'm sort of in it's like an alternative universe. and,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to walk in there with the same pace, like the same pacing as I would walking into my friend's house. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
walk in with the same expectations of outcome. Like we should come to a decision on X, Y, or Z in X amount of time when I walk in this door. Like just really softening around all of those expectations is what I'm hearing from you to go, okay, what's actually present in this space and how do they need me to meet them? You know,
Yeah, that is reflected perfectly.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you want to share a piece about how you because you're stepping into this role now. I mean, you've been an expert for many years with the body and helping people out of pain, right? With all of your background in strength training, personal training, Reiki, energy work, all of that. But now you're holding a family really as you're curating, right? A system of care, a village of care, right? Because each family member has their family around them, but then they also need different care. They need, maybe there's an occupational therapist, maybe there's a facility, maybe there, right? So there are all these different pieces that have to
mm-hmm.
come together to create this team, which is why your Facebook group starts with it's a team effort, right? Or team
Mm-hmm.
effort. Um, so will you tell us one story? I know there are a couple because I've heard them about how you've held your family as a team and negotiated. I'm thinking there was a Zoom call that you held that honored a particular milestone. Do you want to talk about that piece, that story?
Mm. Yes, and so I've done that now twice, and but this particular one was for my parents' 70th wedding anniversary.
Mm,
So 70. That's a long time to be married, and that happened just this past September. And going into it, we had like to um, create celebration or parties around these big milestones. But you turned me on to a group called Reimagine. out in California. They're reimagining grief, and was sparked with that idea of reimagining what holidays or these special events might look like with someone with Alzheimer's. They are very different, and how you've done them forever maybe has to change. And in this particular one, when it's a anniversary and one partner is not present, holding that other partner and recognizing this marriage, even though one of this is not recognizing it as much, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. So I dove into a bit of what would make it special for my mother. And her hands down biggest legacy is, she's the mother of 5, but she is the grandmother of 15. And, the grandkids are the biggest legacy. She is known throughout the land of having cards arrive on the day of a birthday, through the postal service, through snail mail. She knows what the timing is, and it arrives in their mailbox on the day of their birthday, or, Valentine's Day or Halloween. Like, she always would send little cards. And so gathering her grandchildren together was what we would think would be a fun party for her. So my siblings and I were going through iterations of what that might look like. But getting 15 people between the ages of 25 and 40 together in one place at one time wasn't going to happen. And so I set it up as a Zoom call, which was much easier for everybody. And from what I gathered with my in-laws' process of dying, there's a little booklet that comes in the hospice kit that's kind of what to expect at the end of life, but they also have a page on how to say goodbye. And I know my mother's not at the, that place yet, but it's also a way, it gave some prompts that were perfect for the kids to begin their thank yous of what Nana meant to them, kind of thing. And so that's what I wanted to pour the love into her from them. And so I did this whole big email of the prompts and what dates we can do, and sort of put some deadlines around this stuff. I wanted to structured but organic, and got it all together, got the Zoom on my parents' TV, and, was facilitating that in the background. And not all 15 kids could show up, but the ones who did were amazing. And they appreciated the prompts and the kind of words to sort of use. Some had to write it out, lots of tears in the room, but it was the most beautiful moment. And I don't think my mother could get more love. And I think she really appreciated it.
Wow. That's so beautiful to hear, and I'm seeing you also, like, seeing all these different hats that you wear. Like, as an elder care health advocate, you're really like a community organizer, helping the team to organize themselves in the best way to bring the most support and the most love, which is what you did for your mother, who would have in other circumstances liked to have a big party, but like you said, to get
Right.
adults, 15 of them who live all over the country together in one place at one time. So just rolling with that, turning it into a Zoom call, and curating all of these cards and all of this love that she was able to receive.
It was so much better because even in a in-person group, like, she never would have gotten that. We would not have sat in a circle. Like, it would have been little conversations here and there or something like that. But the beauty also is they got to hear each other
Yeah.
and share that. And that was some place that I don't think any of them had ever gone before. And yeah, it was transformational on so many levels. So yeah, I agree. It's a special thing
Yeah.
we witnessed to.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And um, is there a tip that you might want to give folks who are listening, because we may have people who have searched this podcast for because they have a family member with Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. Um, I know that you have sort of a framework that you hold people in. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe give one example of something that you did for your father that they might be able to take with them? I'm thinking what's coming to mind is, the issue of his car, right? So you have someone who is not able to process a change, right? So change is not easy for your dad. So,
Yep, yep, yep.
so do you want to talk just a little bit um,
Yeah,
about
so diving into a lot of the resources available, one that was pointed out to me was a group called Positive Approach to Care. And the woman who runs it is Teepa Snow. And some of you, listening may be very familiar with Teepa's work. She does a lot of wonderful role modeling of how to handle different situations. So I've listened to her stuff endlessly and have practiced it on my father many times, and it works like a champ. In addition to that, as part of the family caregiving group that I've been working with and getting certified through, they have offered dementia coaching. So I'm like, sign me up. And so doing that type of coaching work, my mother and I started it together with the coach. And the initial idea was to come up with 3 care challenges, and then we would come up with 3 care plans to go with those challenges. So immediately, our first challenge was taking my parents both have their cars on site. We haven't had them driving for a year and a half, so my mother drives everywhere still, but his car was still there, and it's been too much to take care of it to, it's stupid. I don't want to have it rust out. So uh he still thinks he drives. So we needed a strategy that my mother would be comfortable with, that's believable and plausible. She cannot lie saying the car just went away. So she needs a story that she can tell him over and over again, that it's where it's going and that she's comfortable with. As we were talking earlier with their role playing, like she's now the decision maker in the, after 70 years, she was never the decision maker. He always was. So she has to, be that second brain, strong person bringing it forward. So it's helping my mother get through that process. My siblings have come on to the call since then, and we're working all together, all of us, on coming up with a strategy that we all can embrace, that's going to be loving and comfortable, that he will be okay with, and then help guide through that process. So it's been huge to receive coaching in that regard. And it's been so helpful to be able to just have sort of an unbiased, open, reflective source help us through the process of our conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's in process right now.
It
The
is in process still.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's endless care challenges that we're facing, but to be able to talk about them, oh boy, it's huge.
Yeah. Would you just share specifically? So your father has not been driving for some time. His car is still sitting there, and it seemed like an easy, to an outside observer. Okay, you give the car to the grandchild. Done. Right? But it wasn't quite so easy. So what did you came up with? You want to just share with folks how you listened to your dad and how you were able to like give back to him something that he could receive. I think that would be really
So in using his own words, in talked about going in to see him with my agenda in the back pocket, and I needed to kind of assess where he's at and have listened and learned words that my mother is using as well. So my parents are both very service oriented. They've always been, giving out to the community, like I've learned from them. And they live in a continuing care community, and their next door neighbor is in a walker. And so for the Valentine's party this year, they offered to give her a ride. In my father's world, from generations of growing up, men always drive. If they're not driving, they're sitting in the front seat telling you where to go. And but in this situation with this woman, even though they're going like 500 yards to the dining room, but that's okay. She couldn't sit in the back seat and she had her walker. So they had to put the walker in the back of the car and she had to sit in the front seat. So my father, had to sit in the back seat. And he is convinced that he drove because that's the way the brain works of memory and recall. And that's always been his duty to drive. So, he still believes he was driving even though he was in the back seat. Going into their home the next time, trying to sort of again hear what he's going to take or how he would have the car pass on. 28 years ago, when my children were born, I gave my parents little booklets of grandma's memories and grandpa's memories to fill out one year, with little prompts and little things to fill out. My mother beautifully did it in one year. Her handwriting, gorgeous. We have this beautiful memory book. My father was crickets. Never heard about it, never talked about it. This past Christmas, we found like 5 by 8 sheets of paper that all typewritten words of his responses to that memory book. And it was gold. He had to type it out because his handwriting is horrible. He wanted more space to write out his answers, so they're a little bit more involved. And in reading that memory book back to him, like he's funny. He's like, "Who wrote that?" I'm like, "You did, Dad. And this was a gift that you gave us." And in it, he talked about being raised during the Depression in a very poor time. And it was okay for all Christmas presents. He got hand-me-downs, but it was not considered hand-me-downs. It was not even considered charity, but it was, what was the word he used? Good stewardship, to take care of your stuff and pass it along to others. And so, in the name of good stewardship, yes, he is taking good care of his car and it's time to pass it on. On that same visit, getting those words out of him that was like written good stewardship. He also was had built a dark room in the 70s in our house growing up, and currently in their house now he has his workshop and there's a stack of black and white pictures. So before going down there, I always feed the birds. I go into the workshop and I'm looking through the pictures and I pull out a few pictures to kind of assess people and places and things. There was one picture of the first boat we had. So I brought up all these pictures and talking about different people and who he, might gauge where he is in space. And so with the picture of the boat, talking about the Evinrude engine and all this stuff, and he's like, "Oh, that boat served us well." Like, bingo, I got another data point of honoring cars and boats or whatever, things that served us well. Thank you. Thank it. And now whoosh, time to be moving on. So hopefully my mother can embrace that same concept and be okay with her good stewardship, and it's time to move on with these things and time to say goodbye, and she can stay strong in that story as well, because it is who they are. They do take good care of their stuff, and don't want it to go to waste.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you were able to then talk to your dad and say, use those words, you know, wow, this car has served you so well. This car has served you
Absolutely. Yeah,
well.
exactly. So
Now we're
turning
going
that,
to be a good steward and send it where it needs to go. Right. So that you,
doesn't it feel good to be like, I want to kind of get that feeling into him, like, oh, it feels so good. I'm so happy that we're doing this. So instilling that good vibe feeling into him,
right.
that they're doing the right thing and this is the right decision and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's hard. He's holding, they're holding on for dear life. And
Because change is hard, and it makes it even more challenging when families are dealing with.
With Alzheimer's, it is just a blank slate. He's digging hard for whatever logic might be coming in, and just it doesn't make sense. Why would he be giving the car away? Like, we still need it, we still use it. You
And I
have to
and I
backdoor
could
it.
and I could see families that don't have this kind of perspective, and maybe they don't have support to have these layers of understanding of how to hold space like this, that it could
Mhm.
be very painful, there could be lots of head to head fighting and
Oh, there is so much anger and
arguing, anger,
fear
arguing
and
over what is, right? Arguing over the the reality of things. And so, I see how you're saying, well, there's no sense in arguing over did he drive or not, or is this car right? So just being able
you're
to
not gonna, keep it simple. There's no arguing. I mean, that's, I think, rule number 4 on, how to talk to somebody with dementia. Do not argue. You will never win.
right, right, right. Well, I really honor this role that you're stepping into and helping whole systems, whole families really create that team, and that village around them, around their loved one, but also themselves, so they can navigate this in a way that is really peaceful.
The
So
hard part is, how do you find these people? Like, who are the angels that are going to show up? And who is that person, physical therapist, occupational therapist, anybody? Who is that person that understands? And so that's sort of my mission, as well as helping to teach these folks what it's like to work with somebody with dementia. Like you were saying, what do you do crossing that border? You have to slow down. One of the biggest X's against, because we have had some people come in and try to do occupational therapy or whatever with my father, and he ends up yelling at them and throwing them out the door. He thinks that they're babysitting for him, or they talk so fast and at a high pitch that he just can't process it. So his immediate is a, you know, ogre, get out the door. And then that makes my mother, want to ooh crawl with embarrassment. And, so there's an educational component even for the service industry folks, as well as the family, as well. It's a whole big place of
so
curious mind, open heart, and little tricks. And I found that the personal touch, like just feeling a touch of somebody with their hand, and Tipa Snow has a wonderful hand over hand methodology, that, or even like a little cuddle toy or something that just is that soft comfort.
yeah,
How do you bring down a situation?
yeah, yeah. There's just so much opportunity for
Mhm.
learning and growing and understanding here in this realm.
Make it easier, like, to make it a good experience for
Make it,
everybody.
yeah. So if you're listening to this and you'd like to make it easier for yourself, for your family, for everyone involved, you can find Ann. Ann's going to be doing some education on a regular basis online. And one of the easiest ways to find her, if you're on Facebook, is to head to the Team Effort Families Navigating Dementia and Alzheimer's Facebook group. It's a community group. You can join that and drop your email in there for Ann so that you can receive her regular e-newsletters that will be offering tools and guidance, and you can keep in touch with her to receive the webinars, master classes, and things that she gives coming up here over the spring and summer and all year long, I'm sure.
Like to also pop on and piggyback onto that one and say I couldn't have done it without you, Jen. And this is, there's just a ripple effect. Like what I've learned from you, I'm taking those sources and applying them, yes, to my situations, but also down the road, like the ripple effect. And so listeners will take these little tidbits and realize the value of coaching and the value of teamwork. And, everybody has their own strengths. Everybody's a different dog in the dog park. but honoring everybody's strengths, because that's where conflict comes in when, you're fighting about doing certain things. Well, they're really good at this, so let them take that road, and they're really good at this. So the team, like everybody has a job to do that not everybody's good at. And so how do you fill in the gaps and work together as a team? And that really was the biggest takeaway for me, but then getting information from others that works and pass it on down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
So,
thank you for all you do.
yeah, thank you, Anne. So if you're interested in getting some support, and you're in that category of someone that has a family member with some form of dementia, definitely reach out and find Anne if you're looking for some mentoring or coaching around, um, stepping into a new version of yourself. I offer 3-month seasons of spiritual support and stepping into your own sacred leadership or into a new creative role or getting a project out. And then we have community over at the Grace Collective that Anne is a part of. She's been a member for almost a year with us. And we cultivate real celebration and support because we can't do this. And this is something that you help your families do. We can't do this without folks supporting us, celebrating us each step of the way, and saying, wow, I really see you. I acknowledge you for this big leap you made. I saw you 6 months ago, and this is where you were challenged, and look at you now. And I think that that's something that we need to continue to cultivate within our families. And that's something we do in our communities is celebrate each other, see each other, and that really helps us to move forward and succeed in whatever challenges we face. So, thank you for being part of our community, and thank you for
And sister,
yeah, I'm so appreciating you. So. Well, thank you, and we'll get everybody your we'll put your Facebook group in the show notes, and folks can stay in touch with you, and I'll put information about the Grace Collective
wait
in
to hear everybody.
there. And yeah, much
I
gratitude.
believe everyone has a story that needs to be heard.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing yours.
Thank you.